You're on 98.5. This is Mornings with Mike. Good morning. And my regular guest every Monday morning is Graham Irvine.
Good morning, Michael.
We talk about parenting.
How are you, mate?
I'm better. I wasn't good last week, but I'm feeling, I had a bit of a man flu, bit of a blocked up head and stuff. Okay. So, I'm feeling good today.
Righto.
I've been learning about wetsuits. I just talking to you off air.
Yeah, there you go.
I've never worn a wetsuit, so I was actually quite interested in how the whole wetsuit thing.
Yeah. The technology has improved amazingly so that it stretches as you need it to stretch. That's all I'll say on that.
Okay. Shall we move on?
That's it, move on. Yeah, it's getting far too embarrassing.
But you did mention you had a surf on Friday. Perfect weather. And,
man, it's just gorgeous. And I was in the water before the sun came up, but it was a little brisk.
What are we talking, 6:30? 6-ish?
Yeah, 5:45.
Okay.
5:45 rather. So sun doesn't come up. I was at the spot up near Two Rocks, and because you're fairly close to the first dunes, you really don't get any sun shining on you when you're in the water until about 7:30, 7:45.
Right.
So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It was 6 degrees when I got out of my car.
Whoa.
Thinking, okay, do I really want to get wet? Getting wet's not the difficult part. It's actually stripping down and getting into your wetsuit. So,
that's when it's cold.
It might chilly, yes. So I'm looking forward to 22 degrees in Bali. Thank you very much.
Now, we're not talking about surfing. Well,
we're not?
We're kind of,
really?
Shall we get back on to parenting?
Okay, all right, if we must.
Now, last Monday, we got quite a few text messages coming in.
We did.
Thank you, Denise from Jolimont. Now, Denise had a question we didn't get to because we ran out of time. So Denise was asking till what age, we were talking about teens. And you were talking about sleeping was okay.
Yes.
It's a normal part of being a teenager.
It certainly is. Yes, that's right.
Now, Denise is asking, till what age do teens sleep so much? And how do I get my 18-year-old to clean up after himself? Hello, Denise. He cooks. Now, he does cook, and I do the dishes at night, says Denise, but he cooks in the day and doesn't clean up after himself. Now, Denise says, so irritating.
Yeah. So, okay, the sleep deal. For guys, really, they'll sleep until about 35 they get out of the So, ladies, if you're just married, well, you're going to have to drag him out of bed most mornings. In fact, my wife would probably argue that's still the case with me because she leaves before. Anyway, no, we won't even go there.
No.
Look, certainly it is a scientifically proven fact that teens do need to sleep more. And they tend to want to sleep through their morning nap, so they do. Getting them up in the morning can be a challenge. And look, it's really like that until their late teens, even early 20s sometimes.
Yeah. Okay.
So you've got to sort of figure out, okay, well, how do we do this with the least amount of stress? Now, of course, that's not an excuse for saying, oh well. If you have to sleep till 10 o'clock, then, you don't need to go to school or whatever. I mean, that's not how life is. You and I both know that part of living and doing what we need to do as an adult is you do what has to be done, and sometimes you enjoy it and sometimes not so much, but it still has to be done.
Yeah, sure.
And that's part of the discipline that a teen needs to learn as they're growing in this space of moving from childhood to adulthood. I've often thought, actually, that the loss of, what's the word I'm looking for? The loss of a very clear move from being a child to an adult, initiation in tribal cultures, the loss of that in Western culture is a really great loss. Because it's very difficult. It's difficult for us as parents, but it's also difficult for the teen. In their head, they're asking, am I a child? Am I an adult?
Yeah.
Sometimes you treat me like a child. Sometimes you treat me like an adult. I've had mums come and speak to me about their 23-year-old. And I've had to very carefully explain to them, but very clearly, that a 23-year-old is no longer a child. They may be your child biologically, but they are no longer a child. They're an adult, and you have to treat them like that. Well, of course, if as a parent I'm treating them like a child, and one minute and then treating them like an adult the next, it's very confusing for them. So anyway,
Yeah, okay.
in regards to sleeping, that's just how it is. And some teens will need more sleep and some less. And you've got to really structure your routines around that without giving into it totally.
Sure. We'll take a break, Graham, and we'll come back and we'll
Talk
some
about
more.
cleaning up.
Yeah, Denise is also asking about how do I get my 18-year-old to clean up after himself. Oh, how long have we got? We'll take a break. We'll come back and tackle that shortly. You're on 98.5. This is Mornings with Mike.
I could stay awake just to hear you breathing, watch you smile.
98.5, this is Mornings with Mike, and GrahamIrvine from Riverview is in the studio. We're talking about teenagers, and we're talking into a question that Denise had last week about how long do teens keep sleeping for, at what age does it change? And that's a trick. And probably early 20s is a bit of a guide, Graham.
Yeah, look,
roughly.
late
Depends on the
teens.
person.
Yeah, it does, and I think a little bit depends on their lifestyle. You know, as we were just saying off air.
Yeah.
You know, those of us that get into surfing, we don't sleep in.
Yeah, or
and
playing sport.
Yeah,
Yeah.
playing sport of any sort. You know, that's what you want to do. You're motivated to get out of bed, which means that as parents, you know, of those early teens that are involved in those sorts of early morning sports, you might want to look carefully at when they go to bed.
That's a good point.
Because the reality is that they do need those extra hours of sleep. So just a hint.
Yeah,
Look
good.
carefully at when they go to bed so that they are getting their sleep.
Now, Denise is also asking, how do I get my 18-year-old to clean up after himself?
So yeah, he cooks and I do the dishes at night, and but he cooks in the day and doesn't clean up after himself. Yeah, look, I guess 18 years.
That's where it's all changes.
It's pretty
doesn't it?
much it. Yeah,
18.
yeah. You know, I mean, again, setting aside the whole, you know, let's make it an easy mark. It isn't, but in Australian culture, an 18-year-old is considered an adult. You're able to sign your own contracts. You're able to vote. You know, all of those things that we see as adult behaviour. This young man is sitting in there. So maybe one of the things I would suggest to Denise that she just sit down over a cup of tea and think about is, what if my boy was a boarder and not my son? How would this operate? What would it look like in our home? Because we certainly will treat a boarder differently than we treat our own child. But at 18, while they're still your child and will always be, they're now an adult. And so there's that shift that we need to go, well, okay, what are they responsible for now? And what should they be responsible for as an adult? You know, one of the things that we did in our home was, as soon as any of our children started to work, and generally, you know, around 16, that sort of thing, right, we actually charged them board.
Right, at 16.
At 16. As soon as they had a job.
All right.
Right. Now, I have a friend who charged them a fixed amount. And as he said, that worked out really well for him, because there were some weeks when they were in arrears by about $300. What we did was we said, okay, we're going to charge you 10% of whatever you earn. Because at 16, they're often varied shifts, and sometimes they'll work, you know, 2 days or 2 evenings a week, sometimes one, whatever. So we just said, as a percentage, this is what you're now going to contribute to the finances of the household. So it's, again, it's a little bit, it's this change of mindset that says, and particularly at 18, I would go, Denise, think about your boy as a boarder and not as a son.
Yeah.
How would that look, right? In regards to cleaning up, how would that look? You know, does it mean that... I remember one mum telling me that she had such a challenge getting her teenage daughter, whose responsibility it was to wash the dishes, and she said she made a decision that she was just not going to come home and wash them, even if they needed washing. So she said after about 4 days of no dishes being washed, the daughter went out, right, in the evening, and so mum took all of the dirty dishes, pulled the covers back on the daughter's bed, placed all of the dirty dishes on the bed, and pulled the cover back up.
Oh, no.
To say, you can't sleep until this is done.
Wow.
So,
Wow,
you may
okay.
not need to go to those extremes, but it certainly is a shift in mindset for the parent, Mike, to go, you know what, this person, particularly at 18, you need to be taking adult responsibility for this. And so I'm going to treat you like an adult. Now, that's the difficult part for the parent.
Yeah.
What?
Particularly at 18.
Oh,
because
absolutely at 18.
Because all you
yeah.
want to do, you've been doing everything for them,
That-
potentially, and
Yeah.
that's the challenge, I reckon,
Absolutely.
at that age.
That's exactly right. I mean, I
Yeah.
have had numerous conversations with mums particularly, because they tend to be the ones that sit in this space, that, are asking questions about how they should parent a 23-year-old. And my answer is you shouldn't.
Yeah. They're 23?
They're 23.
Yeah.
Your responsibility is no longer to be the boss or the coach, right? Now, you'll be the coach in some things for a little bit,
Yeah.
but 23, total change of mindset needs to happen. This is now an adult.
Yeah.
They're not your little girl or little boy anymore.
Great.
And I think that might help Denise just to think, if he was a boarder, what would I expect?
It's a good thought, Graham. We shall take a break, come back, and we shall wrap things up. You are on 98.5. This is Mornings with Mike.
Planning to do some DIY around the home? You might need some tools and timber. Check out the hardware services available through the 98.5 Business Directory. Go to 90...
On 98.5, this is Mornings with Mike, and GrahamIrvine from Riverview is in the studio. We're talking about parenting teens this morning. Now, Graham, can I ask you? But sometimes we just want to, we just love our kids, and I just want to do everything. I want to make the bed, clean up after them.
Keep going like that, I'll slap you.
But it is. Do you reckon it is a hard transition? Already at 18.
And look, the more you think like that, and I know that there are some parents that do. The harder is the transition. Is it Cherie?
Cherie,
yeah. Sent us a brief text to say that part of her parenting role with her son was to think about how she can prepare him for marriage. It reminds me of a conversation that Gay had with a mum. We were working with a couple, and they had a late teen son, and the mother's view of being a good mum was that she did everything for this young man. So she made his bed, she cleaned his room, she washed his clothes, she made sure he was fed 3 good meals a day, right? Whatever he needed, she did. Mate, I said to Gay, no, I didn't say to Gay. That would be just not even thin ice. That'd be just drowning myself. That millstone tied around your feet? Yeah, I see you there, buddy. Oh, dear. So, but it was interesting. Gay had a conversation with the mum, and she said, because we were trying to help sort out some fairly big tensions in the house, right? Yeah. And part of the tension was the 17-year-old boy felt that he was being treated like a child, but the mum felt that was her role, was to do everything for him. And Gay said to the mum, so who do you think that your boy's going to marry? And the mum went, well, what do you mean? And Gay said, well, the way that you are bringing him up is that his expectation of a wife will be that the wife does everything for him, because that's what you are doing. That's what you are modelling. And she said, I want to suggest to you that in today's culture, finding a young lady that thinks that it's the wife's duty to do everything for her husband is probably going to be a little difficult. And the mum sort of, was stopped in her tracks. She'd never thought about from that perspective. Yeah. We've said often on this segment that the role of the parent is to grow the child into being a fully functioning adult. And one of the things that a fully functioning adult may be involved with is getting married.
Sure, absolutely.
Right? So how we parent also plays into that role that they're going to play in life. So it plays into their role as an employer-employee. It plays into their role as a person that goes to church and volunteers. It plays into a whole lot of different roles. And one of them is it plays into their role as a husband or wife. So what are we modelling to our teenagers particularly? What a husband or wife looks like. And when Gay challenged this mum, she realised, oh my goodness, right, you're right, there are not too many wives that will probably have that same idea that the role of the wife is to do everything for the husband. So, yeah, you know, it's
good
again,
thought.
I think that the idea of saying, if this was a border in our house, what would that mean? How would we approach that? And yeah, that has a whole lot of implications, which maybe when we come back in a few weeks' time, we can chat about.
We will indeed. We are out of time this morning. Now, next week is our... from next Monday, we kick off our June appeal.
Okay.
Mid-year June appeal
Fantastic.
next Monday. So I won't see you next Monday. And following that is school holidays.
Oh,
You'll
is
be
it?
away and
I
I'll be
will.
away. And
Oh, isn't that a shame?
we're going to have to continue talking about parenting with teenagers.
We are.
Because there's so much to talk about, so many tips to get, so much advice, and it does start early.
It does. Yep. The more you can think about it now, then the more prepared you are when those aliens come down and swap your son or daughter for somebody that you don't know.
It's so good, Graham.
Dear.
All righty, we'll catch up in a couple of weeks' time.
You bet. Thanks, Mike.
My guest in the studio this morning has been Graham Irvine from Riverview. You are on 98.5. This is Mornings with Mike. Stick around. Coming up after 10 o'clock, Sue Joy, author of The Joyful Table, joins me talking about healthy food.
Oh, what's wrong with you?
My renovation's a complete mess, and the tradies aren't turning up when they